Somewhere on Earth, a seismic event has occurred that sends tremors across the planet. The Earth is a very active place, of course, with volcanoes, tectonic shifts, violent weather, regularly expressing huge amounts of energy into the environment. This event might be different, however, as the signatures detected suggest its origins are from human activity, rather than natural occurrences. The unusual event reported by the International Monitoring System, IMS, leads one member state of the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty Organization to send a request on Monday the 3rd of November 2014 to the Director General of the CTBTO for an on-site inspection of another member state. The country of Alluvia believes Meridia has carried out a secret underground nuclear test in contravention of the treaty. And on Tuesday the 4th of November 2014, inspectors gather at a facility near Vienna, Austria, to initiate preparations for an on-site inspection, or OSI, should the Executive Council approve Alluvia's request. Could this rift mark the beginning of a dangerous new nuclear arms race? Not quite. The reason you may not have heard of the countries Alluvia and Meridia is that they don't exist. The on-site inspection is happening, however. It's an exercise called the Integrated Field Exercise, or IFE14.
IFE14 is basically the largest weapons of mass destruction exercise that has ever taken place in the international environment.
We came into this exercise with a bit of an apprehension, so coming into an unknown environment, wondering how this would all work logistically, technically, interaction, partnership. But I think things have gone pretty well and smoothly.
I think this exercise provided quite a great opportunity for all of us, for the participants, for the on-site inspection, even for member states to understand and to test and to show that we are on the right way.
IFE14 is the second fully integrated field exercise that has taken place since the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty Organization was first formed, and it expanded significantly on the previous IFE held in Kazakhstan in 2008.
It's much more ambitious in scope. We're using a much more sophisticated and technically challenging scenario, and we're in the field for much longer.
Since IFE08, when we had roughly half of the envisaged technologies, that means 8 or 9 technologies available. Now for the IFE14 we have 15 out of 17 technologies which are deployed and was used during this exercise. That was a huge, I would say, leap forward.
The scale of IFE14 is such that it required several years of planning, including a number of build-up exercises to test different phases of an OSI. One of the most important aspects in the development of IFE14 was the scenario on which it was based.
We wanted to make it as technically realistic as possible. We wanted to make it rationally coherent, and then it had to be temporally logical to move through in the right way. And then most importantly, I wanted to make it sort of intellectually stimulating. I wanted the inspectors to, they wanted to go out the next day so that they could get some more information to solve the puzzle.
So it was a non-compliant scenario, which meant someone had tested. So we worked out the parameters of what you would get if you were to test underground, trying to do it clandestinely to give the telltale signs that you would get from conducting a 1 kiloton explosion underground.
After years of detailed preparation and planning, the trigger is pulled, and the story of IFE14 begins on the 3rd of November 2014, as told by the regular video blog.
The story so far: an ambiguous seismic event was detected by the International Monitoring System.
An on-site inspection will have several distinct phases. Once a formal request for an OSI is received by the Director General of the CTBTO and she or he has communicated the request to all state parties, the inspectors will gather in preparation, should the inspection get the green light. At this point, the inspection is by no means certain, as the Executive Council will need to vote for it to proceed. Only if there is a majority of 30 out of 51 affirmative votes can the inspection go ahead. According to the treaty, however, the inspectors must arrive at the point of entry of the inspected state party, ISP, within 6 days of being informed of the request. There is no time to lose. The inspectors must assess all data available and permitted by the treaty, including data from the IMS, and produce an initial inspection plan that they will present to the inspected state party representatives on arrival. Whilst the inspectors develop their plan, support teams prepare for the transport of all the equipment that will be needed during the OSI. Up to 150 tonnes of it, all needing to be at the point of entry within 6 days.
25 containers, 2 generators and auxiliary equipment that's in the belly of the plane.
Why so much?
Basically, an OSI requires this much equipment. There's a lot of different sorts of things that we need, a lot of electricity.
So what led Alluvia to request an OSI? It began with seismic data, but since then, 2 monitoring stations outside Meridia detected unusual radio-xenon isotopic concentrations. Alluvia tracked the radiation back to the suspected triggering event location in Meridia, but the radio-xenon detections are marginal and could be caused by a release from a medical isotope production facility outside the country. The Executive Council make their decision.
The inspectors fly into Meridia's main airport. The state to be inspected denies any wrongdoing and insists that it will cooperate fully, but immediately difficulties emerge.
My bottom line here is you must not give me the mandate or the inspection plan tonight. Meridia is trying to get around a bit of a legal problem that's arisen. There were some errors in documentation that was provided to us that has caused a problem. These are not minor errors, I need to stress. The treaty is fairly clear that any state that's inspected under CTBT has an obligation to give access, has an obligation to support the inspection, and has an obligation to demonstrate compliance. And that's the approach that we've taken in playing Meridia in this game. They're the key obligations. There are many others.
Although this is an exercise, the participants take it very seriously. In a real-life on-site inspection, the political implications could be huge if the inspectors or the inspected state party put a foot wrong. The inspected state party has to be seen to be cooperative, otherwise they risk the inspectors reporting non-compliance. The inspectors, on the other hand, must operate impartially and within the confines set out by the treaty at all times. The treaty states there must be no more than 40 inspectors. They may investigate an area of no more than 1,000 square kilometres. The inspection must be completed within 130 days of the approval given by the Executive Council, and the inspection must commence within 3 days of arrival at the point of entry.
Every day that is lost diminishes the ability for the inspection team to collect their evidence. The following morning, the inspection team are on their way to what will become their base of operations. It is now nearly 6 days since Alluvia requested the on-site inspection. Finally, the inspectors are ready to start work.
An on-site inspection would be a huge logistical undertaking in any event, but as an exercise, IFE14 is even more complicated. In addition to the inspection team, Operations Support Centre and the inspected state party, there is a control team monitoring progress, an evaluation team identifying lessons to be learned, observers following the inspection team, and a management team running the show. In all, there are more than 360 experts and high-level visitors from 53 state signatories, the Provisional Technical Secretariat, and Jordan. In addition, nearly 150 tonnes of equipment are shipped to set up the camp, the laboratories, meeting rooms, work areas, communications and so on, and everything powered from the camp's own generator. The Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan have agreed to host IFE14. and the exercise is held under the royal patronage of King Abdullah II.
Having this exercise in Jordan, a hub of peace and stability in the region, sends a signal to neighboring country that the CTBT is an important cornerstone for this process for peace and security. The government has been working closely with us, showing its commitment, dedication, and its importance of getting this treaty into force.
We got a tremendous amount of help from the Jordanian host nation side, not only for security but also for liaison with customs.
Minister of Health, Minister of Interior, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Minister of Energy, also Jordan Atomic Energy Commission and Nuclear Regulatory Commission.
It's so far so good. The pre-inspection phase is over and the inspection is ready to begin. In theory, an inspection could occur anywhere in the world, so it's likely that each one would be unique because of different terrain, local weather and other factors. The methodology, however, would probably be similar.
Remember, they're looking for a sort of a needle in a haystack. They have 1,000 square kilometers. They have to bring it down to somewhere in the neighborhood of, a few hundred square meters.
1,000 square kilometers reduced to smaller areas of interest called polygons. In IFE14, the initial inspection plan has as a priority an aerial overflight over the whole inspection area and the deployment of as many seismic arrays covering the region as time and logistics will allow. Basically, the overflight will allow the inspectors to look for any signs on the surface that might be of interest.
We are looking for fresh landslides and some roads with heavy tracks and any perimeter lines, any heavy cables and things like that.
The inspectors record the view from above, using video and photographic equipment for later reference. Although immediate use can be delayed because the inspected state party has the right under the treaty to examine all images that are collected and retain parts that are considered not relevant to the purpose of the inspection.
There is a development. We should start the process of copying all the bulky data, okay? Because we need a copy.
Okay, has this been agreed at what level?
Yes.
For the first few days of the inspection, the seismic team members travel to distant areas in the inspection area in an attempt to get a broad spread of seismic data.
The cavern collapse events that we're looking at are rapidly decaying. Right now we're at the diminishing end of that exponential decay.
The inspection is now very much underway. The visual observations team has begun to identify areas of interest on the ground that merit closer scrutiny, and the seismic data is also aiding the investigation. In the meantime, the base of operations has an open day for some VIP visitors and the media to help promote and explain what IFE14 and the CTBTO is all about.
We have done a huge amount in order to develop the international monitoring system over the past 20 years, and IFE is, I think, very important in putting in place that additional building block, which is on-site inspection. So I think it will play an important role in convincing countries who have not yet ratified to move forward in that process.
At this stage, there are over 30 polygons of interest. These are mostly places that have been identified from the overflight after observers have spotted surface markings, such as craters, or evidence of recent human activity, such as new roads or buildings. Each polygon requires a visit from an inspection team accompanied by members of the inspected state party. The inspectors will gather environmental samples, soil or water for example, and take direct readings of radiation. They will record any signs that might indicate relevant underground activity, venting pipes, wires, industrial equipment or parts. All the information will be taken back to the base of operations and assessed as part of a sophisticated search logic.
In Meridia, this is a watering hole. It fills with water when it rains, but we'll allow them to take a sample here.
Even when there are plausible explanations, the inspection team keep a lookout for further anomalies. With this level of investigation, the inspection team are bound to uncover evidence of a nuclear explosion. should there be any? And that, at present, is the big question.
We've seen lots of natural radioactivity. So we're measuring radioactivity, but just normal natural radioactivity.
It seems that wherever they look, there are no traces of relevant isotopes to be found. Anything?
No, nothing about background.
The inspection team now have to complete their initial inspection report. Without any significant evidence of a nuclear explosion, will the inspection be called off by the Executive Council?
The problem here is that we are not in a position to play 130 days inspection, which is allowed also by the treaty.
For IFE14, they compress that 130 days to just 30. One of the control team's jobs, therefore, is to manage the progress of the inspection, speeding it up or slowing it down where necessary. The inspectors want to make sure they are thorough and treat all information appropriately. At the end of the day, to find the needle in this haystack, they need to eliminate polygons that are not relevant to the investigation as quickly as possible. But there can be other factors that slow down the process.
The inspected state party has the right, within limits, to assign areas off limits for investigation, each called a Restricted Access Site, or RAS, and they have assigned a new RAS in the north of the inspection area. However, the recent data analysed shows some seismic activity in the area of this RAS, and the inspection team have asked to drive nearby. The inspected state party eventually agree, but insist there must be only visual observations.
An inspected state party can assign any number of areas as restricted access sites, each of which can be up to 4 square kilometres, with the total combined area being no more than 50 square kilometres. The treaty allows for restricted access sites so that state parties can protect sensitive information, such as military installations, for example. For the remainder of the exercise, access to the RAS will be a point of negotiation between the inspection team and the inspected state party. The RAS is not the only area of interest, however.
The inspection team descend on the abandoned quarry with more intrusive equipment than they have used up to now.
We have geophysical measurements, 3 techniques, will be GPR, electrical conductivity and magnetics.
GPR is ground penetrating radar, but of course they need to be able to start work first. But the inspected state party representatives seem to be dragging their feet.
It was a safety thing, so they want to go and check the site first for guard dogs or any other safety issues. Yeah.
Safety is of paramount concern during the exercise, as it would be during a real on-site inspection.
The inspection team is very well trained on incident management, so the first point of contact will always be the command post in here. So if anything happens, they have to report it, starting with radios. If there is no response, then they use the satellite phone. If there is no response, they use the cellular phone, and so on. All different means of communications they have. In all means, we are tracking the inspection team live in the field. So we know at any instance where they are located and on which area exactly they are located in.
The inspection is in the continuation period, so the inspectors are now able to use additionally a wider array of geophysical equipment, and the inspection becomes more intrusive and focused. Evidence for an underground nuclear explosion can be varied. An underground cavity created by the explosion may or may not produce a surface feature such as a crater or a fracture. It may or may not emit radionuclides. It will produce seismic aftershocks, but these are limited in time. Noble gas isotopes will move towards the surface, but it's a race between their escape and their half-life. Anthropogenic artifacts from the execution of an underground nuclear explosion will be created. The inspection, therefore, scrutinises areas of interest with multiple techniques. The shallow techniques, such as ground-penetrating radar, magnetic field and electrical conductivity, are used to map the first few meters below the ground. They are looking for evidence of underground nuclear explosion timing and firing, or data cables, boreholes, or mining entrances, fluffed or altered ground, as well as the geological profile.
So this is a cross-sectional image of the electrical properties of the ground. It allows us to see the distribution of soil and bedrock in the ground underneath the line where we're doing the survey. And what it's showing us is that the depth to bedrock is varying quite a lot along this line. What's critical for RN to do some very effective subsoil gas samples is to get a good cover of soil over the top of the bedrock, and ideally also target areas of the bedrock which are fractured, which would allow the gas to come through much more easily.
RN is radionuclide, and taking radionuclide gas samples will feature heavily from now on. There is also an additional overflight to make multispectral images of the area. Of course, the inspectors never give up on other areas of interest, and there has been a development in the restricted access site, the RAS, where one of the inspectors had previously taken a surface sample from the tyre of their car that had driven through the area.
The sample from the tire did not show anything. However, another sample taken on the same day in this location in a runoff area where water would naturally drain from the quarry did show a positive hit for a very relevant radionuclide.
This RAS, labelled Polygon 29, jumps higher on the list of priorities.
Radionuclide data is extremely important for the investigation. A positive result for a relevant isotope near the RAS leads the inspection team to request permission to investigate in more detail. The inspected state party reduces the area that is off limits for investigation in Polygon 29.
The radionuclide subteam had detected a trace of the radioactive isotope iodine in a sample collected at this site early on in the inspection. The inspected state party, however, explained that there had been a chemical spill and that they are unable to contact the foreign contractor responsible, who had quickly left the country. Could this explain a series of other anomalous features, such as a pipe and a series of cables emerging from the ground? What exactly has been going on here underground?
It's nearing the end of the inspection. The team have eliminated all but 2 polygons that require further investigation.
But in Polygon 29, they want to find the best place to dig, and the deeper they dig, the better. They make some deep electromagnetic measurements to look at the composition of the ground to depths of a few tens or perhaps even hundreds of meters.
Our goal is to get a hole substantially deeper than 1 meter, up to 10 meters in depth, to pump noble gas out of. Their instruments showed that we had a number of places that were over 5 meters, but there was a certain place where the bottom dropped out of their measurements, probably a fracture in the earth at that location. A fracture is like the superhighway of noble gas migration.
These are particular noble gas isotopes of argon and xenon that, if found in sufficient quantities and in certain ratios, are considered smoking gun evidence of a nuclear explosion. The inspectors now continue with deep continuation period techniques, such as deep-ranging electromagnetic and active seismic measurements.
Back at the laboratory, the radionuclide team finally have some interesting results from measuring noble gas emissions in Polygon 29.
Hole 4, 3, and 2 have each had radio xenon hits, and hole 4 has had the argon 37 hit.
Can the inspected state party explain the results?
For the xenon 131, the M, they've said that the iodine spill is the cause. That is potentially a cause for seeing xenon 131M, but we saw much higher levels of xenon 133, and the iodine spill is not an explanation for that.
And what about the argon?
The argon 37 is a result of high energy neutrons on calcium, and by no means is an iodine spill a source of high energy neutrons.
While the inspected state party continue to deny any wrongdoing, the inspection team complete their investigation with a final chance for the Meridian representatives to respond to unanswered questions.
It is the last day of the inspection before the team deliver their report. They visit the 2 sites that have not yet been excluded from their inquiries, Polygon 18 and Polygon 29. and they make a final effort to obtain answers to some questions. In Polygon 18, they have asked repeatedly for access to the locked gates, but the answer has always been that the inspected state party do not have the keys. This time, however, they get a slightly different answer.
I have to be very honest with you and tell you that also if we have the key, we don't let you in.
Oh, well,
okay?
That's a different piece of information.
Because, as written here, it's danger.
In Polygon 29, they have more questions, but receive no answers.
Is a conduit with numerous cables in it of different types of cable. You have some multi-conductor, you have some what appear to be power cables, and then you have some cables that the purpose of them isn't clear. And that's what we've asked the ISP is to identify the nature and purpose of this anomaly, and they haven't been able to answer that question.
What do they say? You don't know?
They're saying basically they don't know.
The day wraps up with little more information than it started with for the inspection team, and they spend the remainder of their time compiling the preliminary findings document.
With the last day of the inspection complete, the post-inspection phase involves writing the preliminary findings document, or PFD. The inspected state party has the right to review and comment on the PFD, and once completed, both parties sign the document with appropriate ceremony. True to the spirit of the exercise, both Gregor Malik, inspection team leader, and Malcolm Coxhead, inspected state party team leader, continue to play their roles, neither accusing nor admitting having undertaken an underground nuclear test.
You have a lot of indications that there are signatures which are...
Yes, but did they detonate a nuclear device?
So that's for others to decide.
And what about the inspected state party? What do they have to say?
Meridia has a number of concerns about what happened at this site itself, and Meridia will investigate this further.
IFE14 wraps up with celebration of a successful exercise, and perhaps a little sadness that it's all over. There is still the camp to take down and all the equipment to return to Vienna. The participants, the inspection team, operations support centre, inspected state party, control team, evaluation team, observers and management will meet to discuss lessons learned, and also for the inspection team to learn the true scenario of the underground nuclear explosion they had been investigating. Although the exercise has ended, the analysis and follow-up of IFE14 will continue for some years to come, ensuring that on-site inspection is ready for when the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty comes into force, and the nuclear genie is finally put back in the bottle.
The real key to an inspection to me is the inspectors. And I think the inspectors need to be well prepared, and not that they weren't well prepared here, but to have more of these kinds of exercises, and not just full IFEs, but other exercises where they can get a chance to get a feel for things.
I think the evaluation team, who's doing a great job, probably needs to be bigger. We've had some very, very good evaluation team members, but they are stretched thin.
One of the things that is a challenge for an inspected state is to just keep up with all of the information, all of the data that's flowing, all of the results, and try to understand it. I think we need to improve the way in which some of the information through the receiving area is presented.
We're in a very, very difficult terrain. I think they grossly underestimated the time it took to get to some of these places.
The IMS and IDC is very good now, and that 1,000 square kilometers was decided many years ago.
The 1,000 square kilometers was based on an expected error ellipse size coming from the IMS for identifying where sort of the maximum size that they would have from their seismic events.
And that now you don't necessarily have to perform an exercise, especially if there's time compression, that is in that large an area.
They underestimated, and perhaps we all did, security implications. We want to leave this equipment out in a field in the middle of nowhere.
When you're taking key measurements like noble gas measurements, I think it's given us a good lesson that you need to have various checks to make sure that no one has tampered with equipment and that you know if it's tampering or if you know that maybe something just went wrong. I feel really good to have gone through the process. I'm not rushing to do it again right now because it's hard work. But I think we've learnt some really great lessons. But most importantly, we've demonstrated, I think very effectively, that the techniques are very useful, the process is a very useful one, and it can and will work.
In the most probable scenario, in the most probable present context, if asked, are you capable to do it? Yes, to a great extent, yes.
IFE, as part of the development of our on-site inspection capability, for one, it shows today that we're ready, that we've mastered all the verification regime components after developing the international monitoring system to nearly 90% of its capability, having an international data center that is functioning perfectly. And now we're showing through this exercise that our on-site inspection capability is there.